Hi, I'm Patty Dreyer, Portage County Executive. Welcome to Portage County Matters. On our show today, Scott Rifleman, our coroner in Portage County, is my guest. I've got two quick announcements at the top of the show before I introduce Scott. First of all, we have a Central Wisconsin Economic Development Fund. That's a revolving loan fund for folks that are in for-profit businesses and are looking for opportunities to have some funding partners to help with the acquisition of land, buildings, or fixed equipment with site preparation, construction, or remodeling. With economic development aspects like working capital or investments in technology and equipment financing. We've got millions of dollars in this regional fund, and the fund is managed out of 7 counties, 6 cities, and 4 smaller municipalities. I just attended the board meeting yesterday as we made some important joint decisions about the multi-millions of dollars in this economic development fund. We're doing an extra push out there across our region from Adams County, Forest, Lincoln, Marathon, Vilas, Wood, and Portage County, along with the cities of Marshfield, Merrill, Mosinee, as well as Schofield, Stevens Point, and Wisconsin Rapids, and the village of Weston, the town of Rib Mountain, and the village of Plover, and the village of Athens. All of us together are partners in this fund, and it's really an important endeavor. We want to make sure that more folks are aware that these regional loan funds exist and are actively involved. We're not supplanting or taking the role of businesses, banking away from the economic development function, but we are a complement to that portfolio. And so anyway, if you've got questions about our revolving loan fund for our region in Wisconsin, we ask you to contact my office or 715-340-7930. Okay, so 340-7930. And the CWED Fund, Central Wisconsin Economic Development Fund, has its own website. And you can email them at info@cwedfund.com. So thank you for that business announcement. And the only other one I have at the top of the show before we introduce my guest is that we have the budget process for the county well underway right now, and on October 3rd, that's a Tuesday at 5 p.m., I will be presenting that county budget for 2018 to the county board in a special county board meeting, and also to the whole community at that same time. It'll be your chance right after that and for the following month until November 1st to weigh in on what you think. Is the budget reflecting what you're wanting your community to work on your behalf as a citizen here? And the annual meeting of the budget happens with the budget adoption in that time frame. So I really hope that you will pay attention to what's going on with the budget activities and the news related to it, and feel free to contact my office, the County Executive Office, at 346-1997, and we'll be glad to talk more about what I'm working on planning into the budget. It's certainly not anywhere close to finished quite yet, but it will be shortly. Thank you, everyone. Now, welcome Scott Rifleman, coroner for Portage County. I'm very glad to have you on the show for that.
Thank you for having me, Patty. Appreciate it. Yes.
Yeah. What a job. What a job you have as coroner. And I think through this show, more people will learn about your role, your responsibilities, why you're in this field. I would really like to tell a little bit more, if you're willing, about your story, because I think it's a pretty important one. And then also about where we're going with this important role in Portage County, what we've got our sights on as far as how to shape the position and in the future. And then also some of the other things going on in our region in relation to the activities around the coroner's duties, morgue-related duties, and whole bunches of other very interesting and important topics. Probably not what most people thought we'd be talking about on a daily basis, but I think this is something for more people to understand about their community and their county. So Scott, tell us all about the coroner's role and responsibility and how you got into it. You've been into it for many decades.
Many decades, for sure. Yes, the role of the coroner's office is to actually determine cause and manner of death. And we do investigations of deaths that occur outside of a medical institution, which would be a nursing home or a hospital. and those that deal with tragic traumas that might be accidental or homicidal or suicidal, and even natural cause death of younger individuals who are not expected to die at any particular time. So we do those investigations to determine the cause of how and why they died, and then the manner of death is whether it was determined to be an accident or a suicide or a homicide. So that's really the role of the coroner's office, and it's based on Wisconsin state statutes. So all 72 counties in Wisconsin have a coroner or a medical examiner system that follows those statutes and does the same thing.
How did you get into this job?
Well, it's kind of interesting. Kind of an interesting story. It was back in 1981. A coroner at that time resigned midterm, so it becomes a gubernatorial appointment. And I was appointed by Governor Dreyfus at that time, and he had sought me out and asked if I would do that at that time. And I was working for the Stevens Point Fire Department as a paramedic firefighter. And I thought, well, sure, what does it do? So I investigated a little bit and came back and said I would be willing to do so. And so he appointed me. The interesting other side tale is at that time he was, of course, the Republican governor, and he asked me to run on the Republican ticket in Portage County. And I said, Governor Dreyfus, do you realize no one wins on the Democratic or on the Republican ticket in Portage County? It's a very strong Democratic county. And he said, let's give it a shot. So I've run since and still remain in office. Important
role. Now, when we think about the job of a coroner, I mean, many of us have different images that come to mind. And I've heard you talk at budget hearings and other meetings that we've had, Scott, about how you see your role in bringing closure and peace to people. And I think just a few words about that would be really awesome.
Well, for sure. I mean, there's several sides to death investigation, which the interesting scientific side, of course, is the investigation itself, and medical science and forensic science is increasing tremendously, and the abilities of what we can do in death investigations is advancing literally daily and monthly. The other side of it is the emotional side. I mean, we're dealing with people's worst day, worst nightmare in most cases, because it was a sudden, unexpected death, either tragically by trauma or suddenly by medical concerns. And really where I get my rewards are dealing with family members and helping to explain to them what happened and give them closure as to what had occurred in the death. And that really is the reward that comes through. And, you know, there's a lot of emotions for our death investigators, too. I have 4 deputy coroners who work alongside of me. And for each of us, you know, we have to handle the grief that is involved with working with families. So there's an emotional side to the job also.
How do you get help along the way? Before we talk more about, you know, causes for death and some of the trends and so on, how do you and the deputy coroners get help in processing through what you go through in this role?
Well, I mean, it is just something we deal with, and each in our own ways deal with it specifically. It does require a different type of personality. It's not for everyone. And I find those that work best in the field are those that have worked as a paramedic for an ambulance system, or a couple of other deputies I have are nurses, registered nurses who work in the emergency department and work in emergency services fields. So we choose from that group of people, and that's the discipline I came out of also. And that helps because we've seen the worst of the worst and deal with it in our own personal ways.
Mm-hmm. So each year you present an annual report to the county board, and I took an extra look at yours since the presentation was made only, what was it, a couple months ago, I think. Anyway, the total deaths in Portage County for 2016, for example, you had reported was 437. Are you seeing some, I've laid your reports out year by year, but let's hear you tell everybody else who's listening or watching the show, What are you seeing in the way of trends in Portage County in relation to the coroner's duty and responsibility in looking at the deaths of and causes of deaths here?
Certainly. Yeah, there have been a number of trends over the years. When I first began, we dealt with literally 75 to 100 to 125 deaths a year. And now we're up, I think this year now I have so far 235 deaths so far this year that I've dealt with, and last year I don't recall what my total numbers were, but they were 325 or something like that.
You mean 337 to investigate?
Yeah.
To review and investigate specifically?
Sure. So the numbers have gone up for several reasons. First of all, cremation permits. Cremation is the leading means of disposition now of the human body, and about 60% of our cremation, or 60% of our deaths in Portage County are cremations rather than burial. And in all cremations, it's the coroner and medical examiner's responsibility to look at the cause and manner of death that may have occurred, even if they died in a medical institution, to determine what they died from, because once the cremation occurs, there's no way to go back and use or to follow through with the body if there's something that was of suspicion or unknown certainty. So we have to investigate all of those. That means that we have to go to the funeral home, pull medical records, look at the death record to see what the physician signed it off as, and then actually view the body and then sign off the cremation permit to the local funeral director. So that's increased tremendously. The other thing are hospice deaths. Hospice is a phenomenal organization. Hospice is just a wonderful, wonderful group of people and organizations that do tremendous work. But with that, these people are dying in their residences now, and while we maintain a good working relationship with hospice agencies, they still have to report them back to us if they are of circumstances that were unknown at the time to the hospice people. So those have increased. And then just the sheer volume of death investigations. Our numbers have gone up in those that we're required by statutes to investigate. The biggest area of concern now are drug overdose and drug-related deaths. That now, statewide and nationally actually, is the leading cause of death leading cause of accidental death for those people under the age of 50. And it's now surpassed motor vehicle trauma, motor vehicle fatalities, and all others. And drugs are becoming a huge investigation concern and a national concern in general. And drug deaths, when they occur, are something we have to work with forensically. So they need to be investigated forensically, because a fair number of these may go back into the court systems, and people may be charged for the death of that individual.
So all of this, Scott, probably translate, or it doesn't just probably, it does translate into an increased workload for the duty of the coroner.
Absolutely, absolutely. It has, and these investigations require probably up to 10 to 15 hours of investigation time, because they have to be autopsied. Our autopsies are done in Madison, so there's transport time. And
who pays for the autopsy in Madison?
The Portage County taxpayer. It comes out of our budget.
So when we talk about the drug issues in our community,
it's a huge impact upon our taxpayers.
Yeah, I was just over at the Health Human Services Board meeting a couple of nights ago before the taping of the show, and I was learning about our child welfare cases, and of our active child welfare load, 62.5% were drug involved. So it's hitting us as the taxpayer on that side as well, as we have a responsibility to protect the children in those situations, and out-of-home placements, and the costs and the interventions, and so on it goes. And then try to get over into, say, a drug court scenario where we're paying again, we're trying to rehabilitate, get people straight. But then on the other side, in the event that they have an overdose, death, then you and all of the other response aspects of the scenario come over to your side of the world, and the autopsies and reports and courts. And
that's true. It's a very tragic situation for the addicted and for those that end up dying from it. And these are younger individuals too. It's a real burden on our society, and it's being treated statewide, nationally now as an epidemic, as it should be, because it's a huge impact on families, on the individual, and of course on the taxpayers of our county and state.
For anybody who just joined us on Portage County Matters, my guest today is Scott Rifleman, our coroner for Portage County. Scott, we've got some ideas about some changes when your term is up in November next year of 2018, and a transition that we're allowed to make under the statute to change the position from a coroner to a medical examiner. Let's talk about that. I know that you've been an advocate for this for some time. You've been working with the state legislature on some other changes and other local representatives, I recall. For example, Amy Sue Vrurink, I think, was working with you in a great way with the state legislature on this kind of issue. Medical examiner versus coroner. Let's talk about the difference and why we're looking at this change in our future.
Okay, well, the difference between a medical examiner and coroner is the coroner's position is elected, so it's in the political arena, it's an elected position. The medical examiner is actually appointed to the position in a county structure. In the state of Wisconsin, we have 72 counties, and a fair number of those, probably a third, are medical examiner's offices now, and a lot of them are changing to a medical examiner's office from a coroner's office. And the big reason I'm pursuing this now, and I'm in the process of going through the county system and structure to have it changed, is it's taking it out of the political arena, and it's putting it into a position where the next individual to come after me will be appointed. And I think that's important in the fact that the county can now hire whom they feel has the qualifications to do the job, because it really is becoming a technical position where a lot of work and decisions have to be made to come to final conclusions on cause and manner of death. And it's important that we have the right person or people in the position to do that. So through this next year, and my term is up as of January 1 of 2019, or the end of 2018.
That's right, it was the election in November, sorry about that, yes.
Right, yeah. So throughout the next year, we're going to be hopefully transitioning. It's the county board's decision to do so, and if they follow what my recommendation is, we will transition to a medical examiner's office as of January 1, 2019.
I do support this as county executive, so once it would pass through the county board, we need to have this paperwork in before April 1st.
Correct. Next
year. We will, I will certainly sign it. Now, let's talk what the qualifications would be. What does the general qualification look like for a medical examiner?
Well, it's someone who has, at least for the position of medical examiner, it's someone who has had some level of medical legal death investigation, and that's the term being used nationally now as a medical legal death investigator, okay. Right? So that would be the qualification. Most of these people come out of the medical community as paramedics or registered nurses or even physicians. But to bring a physician into a county structure our size would be very, very difficult just because of the cost factor in doing so. So we would have a lay medical examiner, meaning a medical examiner that is not a physician, and that person would have the qualifications that I somewhat laid out and be a medical legal death investigator, trained, and move forward from there.
Scott, when we talk about what else is going on in the field, I know that we have a really great relationship with the hospital here in Stevens Point. Talk about that, how we partner in support of the mission that you have responsibility for, and then also what we're doing with other counties in partnership of planning forward for the kinds of facilities that we need to support the work of the coroner or medical examiner.
Sure, yeah. St. Michael's Hospital Ministry Healthcare here in Stevens Point has been a huge asset for us. They have felt it their public service to assist us. So I am able, or the coroner's office is able to utilize their morgue facilities, their coolers, and we do most of our physical work in the morgue at St. Michael's Hospital. It's the practice now is expanding so much that we need bigger facilities, if you will, or regionalized facilities, and we're just beginning to form a regional task force that is going to look at the development of a regional morgue. When I speak of regional morgue, it's those made up of multiple counties surrounding us, and we're going to be attempting to build a brick and mortar morgue and have the facilities that would be able to handle medical legal death investigations.
Pathology
Well,
related stuff?
yeah, pathology would be part of it, but just storage alone. Marathon County, for example, the recent tragedies that they've had up there, they had no way to facilitate any of the work that they had. They had a horrendous couple of weeks with the multiple fatalities they had, and they just didn't have the facilities capable of managing it. Storage, coolers, and we do to a very limited degree here in Portage County, but it's becoming harder to work with. So we're looking at a regional morgue structure, and with that, hopefully bringing in and hiring a forensic pathologist to come up to this area and work for us on a regional basis again. And that would save us a tremendous amount of effort here in Portage County, because all of our forensic pathologists that we use are in Madison, UW Hospital in Madison. So we have to transport the deceased down to Madison, do the autopsies, and come back here and utilize those people. And it's a tremendous amount of time involved for our investigators. Not just us. When we have a criminal incident, such as a unknown drug overdose or a homicide or questionable suicide, we bring along investigators with us. So it would be a law enforcement officer that would go with us, or in some cases even a district attorney or one of the ADAs would go with us to the autopsy. So it's those individuals also. So it's a burden of the sheriff's department, police departments, because they have to send.
Know, Scott.
Pardon?
That's a lot of stuff many of us would never
Well, it
know.
is. So you have several law enforcement investigators going to Madison also and taking up their entire day. Whereas if we could do that locally, regionally, it would save us a tremendous amount of time, effort, and money. It would really be a saving to the taxpayers too.
One of the things that I often have in the back of my head too is when we do some disaster preparedness. I mean, we have to think about if we had a mass casualty event and the facilities that would support that. Many times, I mean, I've been in some of the emergency management plannings and trainings with you and looking at that, but this regional morgue facility would be an asset then that could also be helpful in a situation like that, maybe.
It would be helpful to a degree, but the reason they call them mass casualty disasters is because they truly become that. So we have other resources that come out of Madison and Milwaukee. DMORT is the term that we use, and they would come up with the equipment and the storage, mobile and storage. Also, the National Guard has tremendous assets for us. So those would be brought in, even to this day. If this were to occur presently, those agencies would come in and help us. But the regional morgue is truly just to handle our day-to-day operations, which are becoming sorely lacking, and especially in areas. Most counties do not have the facilities that we're blessed to have here at St. Michael's Hospital. Marathon County no longer has the ability to store at their local hospitals and use their facilities. So it's becoming a burden through counties throughout our entire region.
What other activities would you like to make sure that the citizens of Portage County who are listening to the show would understand about your role as coroner, Scott, and your activities of the day in planning for the future?
Well, just be aware of us, I guess. You know, the support as we move forward with the programs, and we'll be making a number of recommendations to the county board and to the committees that will oversee us as we march through. And then, of course, when we get into the regionalization of the morgue, it's going to require a lot of work and probably some monies from area counties to do
Sounds
that.
like
So
some capital improvement
capital
funds.
improvements for sure.
And, well, you know, even if we think about how we partner on the airport, I was just up at the Central Wisconsin Airport yesterday for our board meeting for the CWED Fund, and we do a lot of partnering with other counties, and this will just be another reason to look for opportunities and savings and sharing in that.
It would be. As a matter of fact, we have spoken of the Central Wisconsin Airport property, since it's jointly owned by counties, to possibly
Maybe
be a site
location.
for this, but that's to be seen. This task force is charged to take 1 year, so it's going to be 1 year's worth of monthly meetings to pull everything that we need together and develop a plan and
So who's
move forward.
on that task force?
It's made up of a physician who is also part of the disaster planning systems too, and it's made up of Marathon County board member and their county executive or
County administrator.
County administrator
Yep,
in Marathon
Brad.
County. And there is a couple of members at large who have business backgrounds who can put together business plans. And also we're looking at teaming up with the Medical College of Wisconsin because they're now located in Wausau.
Yep, Marathon County.
And so there was a representative there, and they're quite excited about this potentially coming to fruition also because they have students up there now who are training in it, and those that wish to go into pathology now can utilize this also. So they're excited about partnering with that, and also the tissue donation people throughout the state of having a regional facility, because when we do tissue donations, those also have to be transported out of our area, so it would be a savings to those individuals too to have it. So there's a number of partners involved to at least put the initial plan together, and then we'll spread out to the counties and say, hey, look, guys, this is what we got going on.
That it sounds amazing, actually, and to include the education component, it's brilliant and just very important.
And that will help in recruiting a forensic pathologist too, because there's only like 250, 260 forensic pathologists nationally. So they're a rare bird, and you need a few enticing things to get them into your area. And the medical college certainly will help, because then they can be part of the educational system too, which a lot of them enjoy that side of it, and the teaching aspect too.
So we have about a minute left in the show, Scott. What other points would you like to share with folks, or advice would you like to offer to anybody out there?
Stay safe. Yeah, that's about the best. Stay safe and healthy.
Yeah, safe and healthy.
Let's keep the coroner's office very, very quiet and unneeded.
So I know that when we were taping the show, you said that in the event you didn't get a call, we could carry on with taping today.
Yes.
So how often are you on call then?
Well, the office is on call 24/7, 365. For me, I'm probably on call 4 or 5 of those days in a week, and then I have the deputies that will cover. And we're all part-time. Even my position is 3/4 time right now, so we're looking at elevating that to full-time once we transition, because it absolutely has to be. And then the deputies are very part-time, and they have their other full-time jobs as paramedics or as emergency department nurses. So, and they're on call when they can be, and I rotate somewhat around their schedules and ability to schedule with them.
Well, on behalf of the people of Portage County and our whole state, thank you, Scott Rifleman, Coroner for Portage County, honestly, for all of these decades of service. It's pretty incredible, and you're doing a job that so many of us would never be able to do, and we thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And on a personal note, I'd like to thank you for your future, or for serving Portage County as you have, and your future endeavors as you move forward too. So congratulations, and thanks for your service to the county.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you next time.